All right, we are back and it's time for us to have a look at the newspapers. And apologies for the time of the devotion. I get to understand that in the first few minutes we didn't have sound. Pauline Sana. I hope that right now it's good and it's working. And coming down to the Standard, abductions, interior CS, police on the spot is the top story. Two government rights watchdogs want MPs to sanction the Interior Cabinet Secretary and the Inspector General of Police over police misconduct during anti-tax demonstrations, even as legislatures demand answers on abductions, extrajudicial killings, and results of KNHCR and IPOA probe. This is a story covered on page 8. And still on the top page, why bottom-up model is struggling. So the Parliamentary Budget Office outlines multiple obstacles that have slowed down the bottom-up economy models. Among them, the growing tax burden and inefficient resource allocation, which stands in stark contrast to campaign promises to cut taxes and make life more affordable for the average citizen. Of course, people are feeling it's the opposite of what the promises look like in the bottom-up model. And that's a story you can read on page 4. Still on the top page, fresh bid for free education. Kiambu Senator Karungo Thangwa wants 112 billion shillings in various bursary kitties consolidated and used to fund free secondary education. That's a story you can read on page 5. And on the Business Today, on the Standard, KRA goes after nil tax filers. So the government is expanding mandatory use of personal identification numbers for various government services to improve tax compliance. Wale wa kufile nil returns ndio hii sasa kidogo wanashuku, but that's a story on page 20, so have a look at it. And still on the top page, of course, Kamala versus Trump, who will it be? And yesterday we know that Americans went to vote. They went to the polls yesterday in an extraordinary US presidential race, the tightest and most volatile White House contest in modern times, in which will either make Kamala Harris the first woman president or hand Donald Trump a comeback that sends shockwaves around the world, him being the oldest to ever be sworn in as president in the US. So we have 270 being the number of electors needed to win the US presidency. The Americans vote for 538 electors as assigned to various states in an indirect election, who in turn elect the president. So that's a story covered on the international news, and actually that is on the page 2 and also 3. And moving on to the Enterprise today, the pullout. So we have here stating push to grow visibility of MSMEs as market integration gathers pace. So the government is working on a platform that would boost their presence through e-commerce, aimed at helping them form partnerships to access new markets. So that's it. That is for the pullout today on the Lifestyle Standard. And I also see on the sports page today, PSG's poor form leaves coach speechless, with Mbappe gone, misfiring PSG under pressure in Champions League. So PSG need only to finish in the top 24 places in this 36-team league. And page 30, Kenya's athletic stars who have defied age in race for glory. That's a story on page 30. And coming to the Daily Nation, of course, the top story is all about the America's choice. That's a story on page 4 and 5. And today on the Daily Nation, this is what they're telling us. It started as a showdown between the incumbent Joe Biden and the man he had dislodged from the White House after 4 years, Donald Trump. But towards the tail end of the divisive campaign, the contest had yet another sudden twist. President Biden, heavily criticized for a series of missteps that cast doubt on his suitability for the top job, gave up his re-election quest. It was left to Vice President Kamala Harris to carry the Democratic torch against the powerful Republican candidate, culminating in the dramatic outcome in one of America's most consequential elections. Pages 4 and 5 is the story. And of course, there's a picture here of people lining up to do the voting. And on the top page of the Daily Nation today, more is Raila's AUC power team. Ex-diplomats, top strategist, ran his well-oiled campaign. That's a story on page 6. And then state changes tune on SHA. So non-salaried will now have option to pay premiums monthly. This is a story on the back page. And just looking at it, even more on the same, I see that initially the requirements for annual premiums for informal workers was a way to minimize payment defaults. Many in the informal sector have irregular incomes, and government officials raised concerns that monthly payments would lead to inconsistent contributions, potentially weakening the funding base needed to sustain the SHA. That is the SHIF, actually, the only fund demanded to pool resources for universal care. So that's a story you can touch on. And even for those who are in the informal sector, this would be great for them to know how they're going to do this. And I also see on the back page still how senators plan to save MCAs from governor's grip. And still on the top page, Ruto headache in picking interior CS. So President William Ruto is reportedly keen to ensure his choice of interior cabinet secretary nominee does not occasion a political contest, upset regional balance in a crucial national security organ, or estrange his newly found ally, opposition leader Raila Odinga. That's pages 4 and also 5. Page 10 today, I see dead suspects. Questions in Wells Fargo boss murder is the story that has been covered there. And today on the page 2, of course, it's the Americans vote as a turbulent campaign ends. We're seeing control of both chambers of Congress is also up for grabs, but Republicans have an easier path in the Senate. And page 3 today is covering what Harris or Trump win would mean for key alliances. Our CMOPO saying Trump favors unilateral actions that deliver direct returns to the United States. And on the stories of sports today, Janet Chepkosgei, from almost becoming a Bahraini to joy of coaching in Kenya. So retired former 800-meter star talks about her frustrations seeking to represent Kenya early in her career, who convinced her against changing her citizenship, and how she took coaching youngsters like fish to water. That's a story on page 31. Page 30 today, it's all about the football elections. Murkomen wants transparent polls held to strengthen games governance. So Mwendwa cannot vie for top seat, Sports CS says. And coming down to the Business Daily this morning, we are seeing that borrowers hit as IMF opposes CBK's plan to cut the cost of loans. So lender says Kenya may lose out on investment flows. Treasury CBK pushing for lower rates to stimulate the economy. Still on the Business Daily, growth of new taxpayers slows on collapsed finance bill. Look at that story on page 2 of the Business Daily. And at the back page today, pension funds ESG investing in Africa, not a demand problem. So non-financial risks like climate change have come to the fore, with dire implications on both returns and also on capital. And on to the last word today. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. This is Epictetus, a Greek Stoic philosopher. And that's it for the newspaper review. Of course, you've gotten to be informed, but we have more news that is on Hope FM at the top of every hour. And right here on Hope TV, we have Dira at 7 p.m. and also 9 p.m. we have Newswatch, so you can be updated. It is important for us to know what is happening in our nation and beyond, so that we may know how to pray for this wonderful, amazing nation of ours. We don't have a substitute. It's here. And if Kenya prospers, then we too will prosper. So less of complaining, more of praying. I believe the Lord is with us and he will rise and justice will be served. God is not blind or deaf to the cries of those who are being oppressed. So let's keep praying and believe that God is able to turn things around. So right about now, let us have a look at the video of the day.
ya uzima, na nikutengeneze na maneno ya uzima. Alisema njoo unaeteseka, nitakupumzisha na maneno ya uzima, na nikutengeneze na maneno ya uzima.